Oh blimey, look at that, it's a bunch of faces blinking at me. That's why I call this tutorial Blinky Face. Hello and welcome to another Flash tutorial. I'm going to show you how to do this rather simple animation which involves tweening, but it also involves making something called a movie clip. So we're going to start with a new file, and remember it's usually the first one in the list, a Flash file. Here's my stage, we should be familiar with that by now. And before I even get going, I'm going to name my file. Remember, use the proper naming protocol. Period underscore last name underscore and the name of the assignment, which in this case, I think, spelled with an F, I think it's Blinky Face. Right, so what do we do here? Oh, I know, I've got a layer. And well, before I draw on this stage, I go to Insert, New Symbol. Oh, so important that you do that step. If you missed it, you better go back and double check. Insert, New Symbol, Blinky Face, and call it a movie clip. That takes you to a different stage. Look at the top left of your screen there, just above the stage it says Scene 1, and then it says Blinky Face. Now, I name the first layer Face, and onto this I'm going to draw a, a face, perhaps. So I've got my stroke color is black, and oh blimey, it's making a square. I wanted a circle, but I don't think it really matters here. We can make it a square Blinky Face. Let's get all absolutely diabolical on this and make it a square face. So I've drawn the face, and I want the face to last about, half a second at, I know it says 24 frames per second, but I'm going to fix that later. So I went to frame 7-ish, and I inserted a frame. Now I make a new layer for the mouth. And I'm going to use the rectangle tool again, and fill it with, something like grey, dark grey. In this case, I turn off the stroke color, so it's just a dark grey rectangle. There's the mouth. Oh, ooh, he's going to talk at me with his rectangular robot mouth. Right, now I want to draw some teeth. So I've selected the pencil tool and I chose white. And here's me just drawing some teeth. Ooh, sharp pointy teeth. He's like a vampire, this crazy Blinky Face. I should have called it Blinky Vampire Face, but that's just way too big a name. I'm going to fill in the teeth with some white using the bucket tool. Like that. Looks pretty good. And now I like it, I lock it, and I save it. That's right. If you've been listening, that's what you do. Right, now let's draw the eyes. So, oval tool and a black stroke, and oh look, I can't draw nothing. It's because I didn't make a new layer. That's why you lock the layer, so you don't accidentally draw on the wrong layer. Because if I'd drawn the eyes on the mouth layer, I'd be, well, let's say, I'd be in a bad situation, that's for sure. So I draw the eyes on their own layer, these big, wide, white eyes, and I'm going to put a couple of pupils in there. Oh look, he's slightly cross-eyed. It's totally mad, totally mad. The crazy face, what it's going to be blinking at me. Now, there's my eyes, all drawn up. Now what I do here is on about frame 5, I'm going to insert a blank keyframe. See that? Blank. A blank keyframe. Oh, the eyes disappear. Why would they ever do that? Why would I want the eyes to disappear? Because with the pencil tool, I want to draw closed eyelids right about there, but I can't see where I'm drawing, where the other eyes go. There, I just clicked on a button which is called onion skinning. Now I can see the previous frame in a bit of a shadow, over which I draw the new closed eyelids. You have to make sure you're using the pencil mode in a nice smooth curve. That's what I was clicking on down there. Now when I get rid of the onion skinning, you see, now when I drag this back and forth, there's the eyes open and the eyes closed. I'm actually going to take that keyframe and squash it a little bit more so that the eyes spend more time open and really they're just closed for 2 frames. That's all there is to it. That's a blinky face I've got. You like it, you lock it, you save it. Now, you go back to scene 1, and if you weren't paying attention earlier, you'll be like, oh, what's the difference between scene? It is scene 1. Well, then you would have messed up big time. On to scene 1, on that layer there, you can drag Blinky Face from the library. I'm going to go to frame 48 and do a very simple tween. So I inserted a keyframe, right? You right click on the timeline, insert keyframe, drag it across, right click, insert a motion tween, and that's it. Now notice I drag it across, you don't see the blinking. What you have to do is go to Control, Test Movie, and that will combine. Oh, look, he's blinking like a maniac. What's that all about? Well, that's because my version of Flash defaults to 24 frames per second, and I was doing the math for CS3, which usually defaults to 12, and which is what I use with my students. So I switch it to 12 frames per second, and that's more like it. Now, that's a very simple blinky face, right? I'm going to lock it because I like it, and I think I'm going to save it too. Now I'm going to create a new layer for a bunch of faces. I go to Insert, New Symbol, and I'll call it, oh, I don't know, bunch of faces. That makes sense. It's logical, I might say. This time I'm just going to call it graphic, even though it does still have an animation attached, but really it's just a single frame. And onto this, I drag a bunch of those blinky faces. Look at me. Oh, there's like, oh my gosh, there's a whole, well, a bunch of them. Now, I can use the free transform tool, make one small, make it a little bit bigger, you know, squash it in like that. Make this one, oh, I don't know, let's skew it. Ooh, they look crazy. Now, I overlap it a bit just to create a bit of depth as well. When objects are overlapped, it creates depth. Now, let's select all of those together, and then I go to Modify Group. So now it sees all of those objects as one thing. When I go back to scene 1, on this new layer, I can go to my library and drag in a bunch of faces. And I'll do sort of the opposite animation I did the first time. So I take them over to the left, put a keyframe in, right click, keyframe, insert keyframe, drag them down there to the bottom right, and then right click between the two and create classic tween. Now, this is going to be absolutely amazing. I'm going to now add one more thing. I'll put in a little group, which will just sort of do a little bopping around the middle of my composition here. So, I'll get my free transform tool. Oh, they're all shrunk. They're little tiny faces. Oh, help us, we're tiny faces. What do we do? So I'm going to do a few tweens with these little faces. So I insert a keyframe, move them over there, right click, create classic tween, right click, insert keyframe, move them up there, and I go in and I right click and create classic tween, and then I'm going to do, oh, I don't know. What I'm really trying to do is get them to move around a little bit and then have them come back to where they started. So here I am, I've got down over there, and now putting in the last tween. I'm going to put them back in the middle somewhere, close to where they were at the beginning, the last classic tween. There we go. So that's all the tweening I need to do. One last thing I'm going to do here. There they are, moving all about. Looks good. Is I'm going to put in a sky. So I made a layer, but I dragged it down to the bottom because the sky has to be behind everything, doesn't it? So I've locked everything else, created a layer for the sky. I select the rectangle tool, and for my fill color, I want a graded color. I'm sort of messing about here with the color palette, but what I really meant to do here was click on that little color selector, and that allows me to put blue at one end with white at the other. I draw the shape, But then I use my free transform tool to put the light bit at the bottom and drag it out like that so it fills the stage. You want the lighter bit at the bottom just because that's the way the sky looks, don't it? Now I go to Control, Test Movie, and oh blimey, look at it. It's hilarious. I mean, it's bonkers. It's absolutely mad. Diabolical, you might say. So that's how you make a blinky face. I hope you enjoyed figuring out how to do some slightly more complicated stuff in Flash. See you next time. Bye-bye.